You have heard the parable of the talents your entire Christian life. You have heard it preached as a message about using your gifts, about not hiding your abilities, about stepping out and offering what God placed inside you to the world. And all of that is true. But it is not what the parable is primarily about. The part that has been almost completely absent from church teaching for centuries is the part that could change your financial life entirely. Here is what most Christians do not know. The word talent in the ancient world was not a metaphor. It was not a spiritual concept. It was a unit of currency, a measure of precious metal so large that a single talent represented approximately 20 years of wages for an ordinary worker. 20 years of wages. When Jesus said the master gave his servants 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent, he was describing sums of money that would make your head spin. He was not talking about personality traits. He was not talking about musical gifts or the ability to encourage people. He was describing the largest financial management challenge any of those servants had ever faced. And the parable was teaching them, and us, exactly how faithful stewardship works. The church traded the financial meaning for a spiritual metaphor sometime around the 12th century. In doing so, it stripped one of Jesus' most direct teachings about money of its most direct financial application. Today we are putting it back, chapter and verse. I want to be precise about what I am, and am not arguing here. The parable has genuine spiritual application. The principle of using what God has given you, across every dimension of your life, is real and valuable. I am not arguing against it. What I am arguing is that we took a parable with a rich, specific financial meaning and reduced it entirely to an abstract spiritual metaphor. And in doing so, we removed the most practically applicable financial teaching Jesus ever delivered. Consider what the church has consistently not taught from this parable: that God expects measurable growth from the financial resources He entrusts to you. That passivity with money is not humility. Jesus called it wickedness. That fear of financial loss is not an acceptable long-term strategy. That faithful management of what you have been given produces more to manage. And that compounding dynamic is not worldly. It is biblical. These are not peripheral observations. They are the core of the parable. And yet the average Christian sitting in church has heard this story dozens of times and walked away thinking it was about whether to join the worship team. We are fixing that today with the text. In this video, I am going to take you through the parable of the talents in full, the original financial context, what the stakes actually were, and what each character's decision means when you read it the way its original audience would have heard it. I am going to show you 4 specific financial principles embedded in this parable that most Christians have never been taught. And I am going to give you a practical framework with specific steps, specific accounts, and a specific deadline for applying each principle to your actual financial life right now. This is not creative biblical interpretation. This is the parable read in its historical context, and once you hear it this way, you cannot unhear it. Let's start with what a talent was actually worth. Once you understand the financial scale Jesus was describing, the entire parable changes, and the instruction embedded in it becomes impossible to ignore. Before we can understand what Jesus was teaching in this parable, we need to understand the stakes he set. And the stakes are far higher than most people have ever been told. In the ancient world, a talent was a unit of weight used to measure precious metal, typically silver or gold. 1 talent of silver was equivalent to approximately 6,000 denarii. A denarius was the standard daily wage for a laborer. Do the arithmetic. 1 talent equals 6,000 working days. At 5 days per week, that is approximately 23 years of a working person's full income. The master in this parable gave his first servant 5 of these, 5 talents. Over 100 years of wages handed to a single servant for management. This was not a token gesture. This was an extraordinary, almost incomprehensible transfer of financial responsibility. Now read the parable with that scale in mind. The servant who received 5 talents went immediately and put them to work. He traded with them. He took the risk of deploying capital in the marketplace. He came back with 10 talents, doubling what he was given. The servant who received 2 did the same, doubled his master's investment. And the servant who received 1 talent, which was still approximately 23 years of wages, an enormous sum, dug a hole in the ground and buried it. His explanation when confronted, "I was afraid. I knew you were a hard man. I did not want to lose what you gave me." Fear. That is the stated reason. Not humility, not wisdom, not a desire to protect against risk in a volatile market. Fear. The master's response is precise and unambiguous. He does not comfort the servant. He does not acknowledge the logic of protecting against loss. He calls him wicked and lazy, takes the talent away, gives it to the servant who already has 10. Then he says the line that sounds harsh until you understand compound growth. For whoever has, more will be given and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. This is not cosmic unfairness. This is compound interest described in first-century language. Money actively invested generates more to invest. Passivity generates nothing. And over time, the standing still becomes falling behind. The parable is a financial plan. Jesus laid it out explicitly. The church spiritualized it for centuries. Now, you have it back. The context is established. Now let me show you the 4 specific financial principles embedded in this parable, because each one maps directly onto a decision you are facing with your money right now. The parable contains 4 financial principles. The first 2 come from the master's action. The second 2 come from what the servants choose. Principle 1. God entrusts resources according to capacity and expects a return. The master distributes talents according to each servant's ability. He does not give everyone the same amount. He gives proportionally based on what each person can handle. This is not a statement about fairness. It is a statement about stewardship. You have been given what you have been given, your income, your time, your current financial position. And the parable's question is not whether you received enough. The question is what you are doing with what you received. The master expects a return, not a guarantee. The market carries real risk, and Jesus does not eliminate that reality, but a clear expectation that the servant will deploy what was given rather than preserve it unchanged. Keeping money in a low-yield savings account, earning 0.01%, while inflation erodes its purchasing power year after year, is not stewardship. It is the financial equivalent of digging the hole. Principle 2. The response to receiving resources should be immediate and active. Look at the language. The first servant received 5 talents and went at once. The original Greek word means immediately, and put them to work. No deliberation, no waiting for a sign, no extended period of discernment about whether investing was God's will. He received the resource. He immediately began working with it. The contrast with the third servant is not just that he buried the talent. It is that the first 2 acted with urgency while the third delayed. How many retirement accounts have been planned but never opened? How many investment contributions have been intended but never started? How many financial goals have been identified and then quietly shelved because the timing never felt quite right? The parable does not endorse waiting for the perfect moment. It commends immediate faithful action with what you have right now. The servant who went at once is the servant who was praised. Principle 2 has a specific implication for this week. If there is a financial action you have been meaning to take, opening an account, increasing a contribution, eliminating a debt, the parable's instruction is clear. Go at once. Principles 1 and 2 come from what the master does. Principles 3 and 4 come from what the servants choose. And the third principle is the one that will challenge you most personally. Principle 3. Fear is the enemy of faithful stewardship. The third servant did not lose the talent through recklessness. He did not waste it on bad investments or spend it on himself. He preserved it perfectly, returned it to the master exactly as he received it, not a coin less. And he was called wicked. The reason is the motive. He acted from fear. He told the master directly, "I was afraid." And the master named that fear for what it was. Not caution, not wisdom, not faithful management. Wickedness and laziness. This is one of the most confronting truths in the entire New Testament for anyone who has avoided financial action, because the risk felt too great. The fear of watching an investment account fluctuate. The fear of committing to a financial plan that might not work out exactly as projected. The fear of starting and not being able to sustain it. The fear of making the wrong choice. Those fears are real. The parable does not dismiss them. It simply makes clear that they are not an acceptable long-term strategy. The master returned and asked for an account. Fear was offered as an explanation. It was not accepted as one. The servants who doubled their master's money took genuine risk. First-century markets were volatile. Trade was not guaranteed. They invested anyway, because the master's expectation was clear and fear was not a sufficient response to it. Name your financial fear. Write it down. And then ask yourself, am I burying my talent because of this fear? Principle 4. Faithful management of small amounts creates capacity for larger ones. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. The master does not praise the amount returned. He praises the faithfulness, the consistent, reliable, trustworthy management of what was given. The direct application is this. If you feel your income is too modest to build meaningful wealth, the parable disagrees with you. $200 per month invested consistently in a broad index fund at historical average returns over 30 years produces approximately $300,000. The amount did not make that possible. The faithfulness did. The person who builds disciplined stewardship habits on a modest income carries those habits into every higher income they reach. The person who mismanages modest resources mismanages larger ones. The parable describes how wealth, and the capacity for real generosity, is built. Faithfulness with a few things first. Always. The 4 principles are clear. Now let me give you the exact practical steps for following the financial plan of the parable of the talents, starting today with specific accounts, specific amounts, and a specific deadline. The parable gives us a clear framework. Here is how to apply it to your actual financial life, right now, this week. Step 1. Take inventory of what you have been given. Open every financial account you have. Write down the complete picture: income, savings, debt balances with interest rates, retirement balance. This is your talent assessment, not a comparison to anyone else. Simply, what has been entrusted to you, and what are you currently doing with it? Most people find something they have been avoiding in this exercise. A retirement account that has not received a contribution in 2 years. A savings account earning 0.01% when it could be earning 4.5%. A debt accruing 22% interest while the emergency fund earns nothing. These are buried talents. Name them. Step 2. Identify the one buried talent you will deploy this week, not next month, not when the timing feels better, this week. If you have money sitting in a standard savings account earning almost nothing, move it to a high-yield savings account today. Opening the account takes 15 minutes. The move takes 5. A $5,000 balance moved from 0.01% to 4.5% earns $225 per year instead of 50 cents. That is the servant who went at once. If you have not started investing for retirement, open a Roth IRA this week. The 2026 contribution limit is $7,000. If that seems large, start with $50 per month. The amount is almost secondary to beginning. Set up the automatic monthly contribution. Choose a target date fund matching your expected retirement year. You have now done what the first servant did. gone at once, and put the talent to work. If you are already investing but inconsistently, set your contributions to automatic immediately. The servant who invested for 6 months and then dug the talent up for the other 6 months would not have been praised. Consistency is the faithfulness the master praised. Step 3. Answer this question before you close this video. What is the financial talent you have been burying? Not the one you plan to do something about eventually. The specific one, the account, the contribution, the debt, that you know has been sitting unchanged while it should have been growing. Write it down, name it, and then take the first concrete action toward it within the next 24 hours. 24 hours. The servant went at once. That is the standard the parable sets. 3 actions with specific deadlines. In the next 24 hours, complete the inventory, every account, every balance, every interest rate. Write the complete picture on 1 page. This is the servant counting his talents before deciding what to do with them. You cannot deploy what you have not first identified. Identify your one buried talent, the specific financial resource that has been sitting unchanged when it should have been growing. Then take the first concrete action toward deploying it. Open the account, make the transfer, set up the contribution. 1 action. Today. This week. Set up at least 1 automatic financial action. A recurring transfer to your emergency fund, a monthly retirement contribution, an automatic extra payment to your highest rate debt. Automatic means it happens without you having to choose it every week. That consistency, maintained over decades, is exactly what the master called faithfulness. This month, review every account you have and ask whether the interest rate it is earning reflects active stewardship or passive burial. A checking account, fine. A long-term savings account, earning 0.1%, a buried talent. Move it to a high-yield account this month. A retirement account with a target date fund growing consistently, a deployed talent. An employer plan you have not contributed to despite a match being available. A buried talent worth an immediate 50 to 100% return the moment you begin contributing. The one question the parable asks you, when the master returns and asks what you did with what he gave you, what is your answer? Not what you planned, not what you intended, what you actually did. Make sure you have an answer, and make sure you start building it today. The servant who received 1 talent was not condemned because he was given less than the others. He was not condemned because the marketplace was risky. He was not condemned for lacking expertise or sophistication. He was condemned because he let fear make his decision. He took what he was given, dug a hole, and called the waiting faithfulness. For anyone who has a retirement account they have been meaning to open, a contribution they have intended to increase for 3 years, a financial plan they have built in their head but never executed, the parable speaks directly to you. The master is returning. He will ask what you did with what he gave you, not what you were afraid of losing, not what you were planning to do when conditions improved, what you actually did. The good and faithful servant did not wait for perfect conditions. He did not wait for the market to stabilize or for the amount to feel significant enough to matter. He went at once and put the talent to work. That is the instruction. That is the standard. Your talent is real. Your responsibility to multiply it is real. And the tools available to you in 2026, index funds, Roth IRAs, employer retirement matches, compound growth across decades, are better than anything the first-century servant had access to. You have been given more than you think. The parable has been sitting in Matthew 25, waiting to be applied to your actual financial life. Now you know what it says. The only question left is what you do with it in the next 24 hours. If this video opened the parable of the talents in a way you had never seen before, share it with someone who has heard this story 100 times and always walked away thinking it was about singing in the choir. They deserve the financial reading. It might change how they handle money for the rest of their life. Drop a comment and answer this. What is the financial talent you have been burying, and what are you doing about it today? I read every single one. The talent was never yours to bury.